I killed my sister. Not with a knife or a gun. Nothing so merciful, but by slipping into her skin like a thief in the night, wearing her face to the family table where she'd always shone brighter than me. The swap happened on a rain-slicked highway outside Milwaukee. Our Tesla flipping end over end in a freak accident that the cops called fate's cruel joke. But I knew better. I'd rigged the brakes myself. A whisper of sabotage born from years of being the shadow to her son. And when we woke up in the hospital, tubes snaking from our arms, the doctors scratched their heads, identical twins. But somehow, my soul had crawled into her body, and hers into mine. Gianna Voss, the forgotten daughter, now staring back from the mirror with Isabella's perfect hazel eyes. The revenge? It started with a single text I sent from her phone. See you at Thanksgiving. Mom and Dad. I've got a story that'll make you choke on your pie. That first week in her body was a fever dream of stolen silk blouses and the weight of her designer heels pinching feet that weren't mine anymore. Isabella, always Izzy to the world, the golden girl who'd clawed her way to a corner office at Goldman Sachs by 28, had built a life I could only envy from afar. Her Manhattan apartment overlooked Central Park, all sleek marble counters and abstract art that screamed, I made it.
Mine?
A cramped studio in Brooklyn. Walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' arguments bleeding through like bad karma. We'd grown up in that cookie-cutter suburb of Naperville, Illinois, where Dad flipped houses for a living and Mom hosted book clubs that were really just excuses to sip Chardonnay and gossip about the neighbors' divorces. From the cradle, they pitted us against each other. Izzy aced her SATs. Got into Northwestern on a full ride. I scraped by with community college credits and a barista gig that paid in caffeine and condescension. Gianna's the quiet one, they'd say at family barbecues. Like it was a polite way to admit I was defective. Izzy's half the woman Gianna wishes she could be, Mom would whisper when she thought I couldn't hear. Her voice laced with that Midwestern passive aggression that cuts deeper than any East Coast snark. But the real knife in my gut came 3 years ago, when Izzy's empire started crumbling. She'd been cooking the books at work, fiddling with client accounts, siphoning off just enough to fund her Hamptons weekends and that Birkin bag collection that could have fed a small village. When the auditors came knocking, she panicked. Called me at 2 a.m., sobbing into the phone from her penthouse.
Dan.
You're my only one. They'll ruin me. Please. I was 25, drowning in student loans and a dead-end job. But blood's thicker than ink. So I did it, forged the signatures, took the fall. Pleaded guilty to accessory fraud in a plea deal that slapped me with 2 years probation and a felony record that nuked any shot at a real career. Izzy? She got a slap on the wrist, internal investigation, quiet resignation, and a glowing LinkedIn pivot to consulting.
Meanwhile,
I was blackballed, whispering my name like a curse in every job interview from here to Jersey. The swap gave me the keys to her kingdom and the chance to burn it down from the inside. Waking up in her hospital bed, the morphine drip blurring the edges of reality. I felt it first as a hum in my veins, like electricity arcing wrong. The nurse called me MS. Voss handed me Izzy's chart, and when I glanced down, there they were, her manicured nails, French-tipped and flawless, cradling hands that had never scrubbed a toilet or flipped burgers. Across the room, in my old body, paler, frilier from the crash, she stirred, eyes fluttering open with my blue irises staring back in confusion. What the hell? She croaked. Voice mine, rough from years of chain-smoking menthols to cope with the anxiety she never admitted to. The doctors chalked it up to trauma-induced dissociation. Some psychobabbles about twin telepathy gone haywire. But I knew. That twist in my gut as I watched her flail. Trapped in the shell she'd always treated like trash, it was justice, raw and unfiltered. The kind that tastes like battery acid going down. I played it cool at first. Discharged after a week, I Ubered back to her apartment, my apartment now, while she was shuttled to Mom and Dad's for recovery. The doorman buzzed me in with a nod, like I belonged. Inside, it smelled like lavender candles and regret. I rifled through her closet, trying on power suits that hugged curves I'd only dreamed of, staring at bank statements that showed 6 figures in offshore accounts. And there it was, buried in a drawer under silk scarves, the $84,000 check I'd earned ghostwriting her memoir for a vanity press. She'd pitched it as her rags to riches tale. But every word was mine, nights I'd spent hunched over my laptop while she sipped rose at rooftop parties. She cashed it, spent it on a down payment for her Tesla, the same one that nearly ended us both. That money, it was my blood, my sweat, the one when I'd clawed from the dirt while she preened. Revenge simmered slow at first, a pot on low boil. I texted Mom from Izzy's phone, home soon. Family dinner sounds perfect. Got big news. She replied with heart emojis and a casserole recipe. Oblivious. Meanwhile, in my body, Izzy was unraveling. Calls from her, me begging, Gianna, switch back. This isn't funny. I blocked her, then hired a PI with Izzy's Amex to dig up dirt. Turns out, her fraud wasn't a one-off. She'd been running a Ponzi side hustle, bilking sorority sisters and PTA moms out of their 401ks. Victim stories flooded my inbox. A single mom from Jersey who'd lost her house. A teacher from Ohio staring down bankruptcy. Each one a brick in the wall I was building around her. By mid-October, the leaves turning bloody in Central Park, I was deep in her life. Board meetings where suits nodded at her every word. Happy hours with colleagues who laughed at jokes I stole from her old voicemails. But at night, alone with the city humming below, the dissonance hit like a migraine. Her body moved different, graceful, predatory, while my mind raced with Brooklyn grit. I practiced her laugh in the mirror, that tinkling trill that masked the venom. And all the while, I plotted. The climax would be Thanksgiving, back in Naperville, where the Voss family facade cracked widest. Mom's turkey, Dad's football on the flat screen, and me dropping the bomb that would make them question every blessing they'd counted. Izzy tried to fight it. Once, she showed up at the apartment door in my old hoodie, face gaunt, eyes wild. Give it back, she hissed through the peephole, pounding like a junkie denied a fix. I cracked the door, Izzy's smile plastered on. Who's this? Some stalker? Security. The doorman hauled her away, muttering about restraining orders. She vanished after that. Holed up at Mom and Dad's, spinning tales of identity crisis from the crash. They bought it, of course. Sent me care packages of homemade jam and clippings from Izzy's alma mater alumni newsletter. Proud of our girl. The card read. I burned it in the sink, watching the flames lick up the lies. As November crept in, cold winds whipping off Lake Michigan, I tied the noose tighter. Wired anonymous tips to the SEC, forwarding emails from her work server I'd hacked with a 15-minute tutorial on the dark web. Watched her old clients' lawsuits stack up like cordwood. And the $84,000? I transferred it to a burner account, every cent a ghost of my stolen voice. It wasn't just money, It was proof. Receipts.
Timestamps.
The digital trail of her plagiarism. In her body, I felt powerful for the first time, untouchable. A wolf in silk. But doubt gnawed at the edges. What if the swap reversed? What if this was temporary? And I woke up back in my skin? The fraud pinned on me again?
No.
This was mine now. Her life. Her lies. Her reckoning. The drive to Naperville was a blur of golden fields and strip malls. The Tesla purring like a contented cat. I blasted Springsteen, Born to Run. That anthem of escape we'd belted as kids in the back of Dad's F-150. Irony tasted bitter on my tongue. Mom greeted me at the door with a hug that smelled of Chanel No. 5 and denial. Dad clapping my shoulder with his calloused hand. Look at you, Izzy. City's agreeing with you.
Inside.
The house was a time capsule, faded photos of us in pigtails, Izzy's debate trophies on the mantel, my high school art award tucked in a drawer somewhere. And there, in the living room, slouched on the couch in sweatpants that hung loose on my old frame, was Izzy. She looked up, eyes narrowing my eyes. Accusatory. Hey, sis, she said, voice flat. Long time. Dinner was a minefield of small talk and mashed potatoes. Mom prattled about the neighbor's new in-ground pool. Dad grumbled about gas prices spiking again. Izzy picked at her food, shooting me glances that screamed imposter. I played the part, laughed at Dad's jokes, complimented Mom's gravy, while under the table, my foot, her foot, tapped a rhythm of anticipation. The wine flowed, loosening tongues. That's when Mom dropped it, casual as passing the rolls. You know, Gianna's been
Struggling.
that job at the coffee shop folded.
Poor thing.
But you're half the woman she wishes she was.
Izzy.
Always have been. The table went quiet, forks hovering. Izzy's head snapped up, my head, and for a split second, I saw the flicker of triumph in her eyes. The old script flipping on cue. Dad chuckled awkwardly.
Ah.
Come on, Ellen. John's tough. Just needs a break. But Mom waved him off. Eyes on me, on Izzy's face, with that proud gleam.
No.
It's true. Izzy's the one who made it out. Built something real. Heat flushed my cheeks, not mine. Hers, and I felt the words bubble up. Volcanic. This was it. The hook I'd baited for months. I set down my glass, the crystal clinking like a gavel. Actually, Mom, I said, Izzy's voice smooth as bourbon. Gianna's the one who built everything. I pulled out her phone, my phone now, and slid it across the table. The screen glowed, a banking app opened to the $84,000 transfer. Timestamped from 3 years back, with notes attached. Ghostwriting payment for Isabella Voss memoir. Drafts credited to Gianna Voss. Izzy lunged, but Dad caught her arm. What the? Mom's face drained of color, lipstick stark against paling lips. I leaned in, voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper Izzy used to seal deals. That money? It was mine. Every word of your precious success story, Izzy. I wrote it while you partied. And the fraud? The one I took the fall for? That was you, sis. Siphoning from friends. From families. I covered for you because blood, right? But blood runs thin when it's all you've got left to bleed. The room erupted. Izzy, in my body, shrieking denials. She's lying. It's the crash. She's lost it. Mom clutching her pearls, Dad's face thunderous as he scrolled the phone, piecing together the Ponzi threads I'd linked in a folder labeled Truth. SEC alerts pinged incoming. Lawsuits drafted by my PI. Controversial? Hell yes. I'd chosen this body to wield the blade. But in doing so, I'd blurred the lines. Who is the monster now? Sabotaging the car? Stealing a life? Yet, as Izzy sobbed, my old tears streaking her, my cheeks, a twisted pity stirred. We'd both been pawns in this family game, but she'd played to win, and I'd played to survive. By dessert, the cops were en route, my anonymous call from the guest bath. Izzy fought, clawing at me with nails I'd never bitten, screaming, "Give me back my life." But as they cuffed her wrists, my wrists, I whispered close. "You took mine first." Mom collapsed into Dad's arms, wailing about our girls, the perfect duo shattered. I stood there in Izzy's skin, the $84,000 humming in my pocket like contraband, wondering if victory felt this hollow for everyone.
But the twist?
It hit like whiplash on the drive back to the city. Rain sheeting the windshield. A call from the hospital. Routine follow-up. MS. VOS. Your twin scans. Anomaly cleared up.
She's
Herself again. My hands, hers, tightened on the wheel. Flipping the visor mirror. I saw it. Blue eyes staring back.
meaning.
The swap had reversed, mid-reckoning, leaving me in this body with the wreckage. Izzy, free in hers, but chained by the cuffs and the truth I'd unleashed. I laughed, manic, Springsteen crooning on the radio. Half the woman?
No.
I'd become the whole damn storm. The reversal clawed at me like withdrawal. Every mile marker from Naperville to the I-90 screaming that I'd won the war, but lost the peace. Izzy's body, no. My body now, stuck in this elegant prison, felt heavier with each passing semi-truck's whoosh. The Tesla's autopilot hummed along, but my mind raced laps around the ghosts of what I'd done. Cuffed and carted off in my old skin, Izzy had spat venom. You'll rot for this. Thief. But rot? I'd already been rotting, decade after decade as the Voss family's afterthought. This shell, with its yoga-toned limbs and trust fund glow, was my trophy. Or my curse. The hospital's words echoed, anomaly cleared, like it was a glitch in the Matrix, not the cosmic payback I'd engineered. Back in Manhattan, the apartment waited like a betrayed lover, fridge stocked with kale smoothies and artisanal cheeses, closet bursting with labels I couldn't pronounce. I stripped down, tracing the faint scars on this abdomen from Izzy's adventure C-section sheet had hushed up after a one-night stand with some hedge fund bro. No kid. Just a payout and a non-disclosure. Secrets upon secrets. I showered hot, steam fogging the glass, and for the first time, let the tears come, not mine, but hers, whatever soul residue lingered. What had started as sweet sabotage had spiraled into something biblical. The car brakes? A YouTube hack with brake fluid and a prayer. Done in a queen's garage under cover of night. I told myself it was to force a confrontation.
Not this.
But fate, or whatever dark juju powered the swap, had amplified it, turning a nudge into a nosedive. Sleep evaded me that night. City lights bleeding through blackout curtains like accusatory fingers. My phone, hers, buzzed with fallout. Mom's voicemails, shrill and shattered. Isabella?
Gianna? Who are you?
Come home. Please. The police. They took her. Our baby. Dad's text. Terse Midwestern stoicism cracking. We need to talk. Airport tomorrow? Colleagues from Goldman. Oblivious. Heard about the family drama. Tough break.
Coffee?
And then, the SEC agent. Voice clipped. MS. Voss. We have questions about those tips. Your involvement. I deleted them all. Heart pounding. Controversial decisions? I'd cross lines that made OJ's glove look spotless. Impersonation. Fraud by proxy. Vehicular, whatever the hell. But damn if it didn't feel righteous. Like flipping off the universe that had dealt me the shorthand. Dawn broke gray over the park. Joggers pounding pavement like they owned tomorrow. I dressed in one of my tailored blazers. The fabric-whispering power I wasn't sure I deserved. First stop, the PI's office in Midtown. A hole in the wall with flickering fluorescence and coffee that tasted like regret. You got her good, he said, sliding over a thumb drive of final dossiers. Victims' affidavits. Bank trails leading straight to Izzy's Cayman accounts. But if that swap story's real, you're playing with fire. Lady, I paid him double. Cash from the $84,000 slush fund. And bolted. Next, a notary in Chelsea. Forging, finalizing, papers to liquidate her assets. The money wasn't just mine. It was restitution. A fund for the women she'd fleeced. I'd mail checks anonymously. Watch their lives rebuild from the ashes of hers. But the real tension coiled in the flight back to O'Hare. Economy this time. No first-class flex for the fraudster in heels. Seated between a snoring salesman and a toddler with sticky fingers, I scrolled news alerts. Wall Street darling Isabella Voss arrested in multi-million Ponzi bust. Grainy mugshot of my old face. Hollow-eyed and defiant. Comments flooded in. Karma's a bitch. How the mighty fall. A few free Izzy. From her sorority cult. My stomach twisted. Had I gone too far? Exposing her was justice. Stealing her body, even temporarily, was theft on a soul level. Yet as the plane banked over Lake Michigan, ice blue and unforgiving, I remembered the boardroom where she'd laughed off my prison visits, sending Hallmark cards unsigned.
No.
This was balance. Mom and Dad's house loomed at the cul-de-sac's end, porch light flickering like a dying firefly. They were waiting on the stoop, Mom in her robe, Dad with a tumbler of bourbon that smelled like surrender. Izzy, Mom breathed, pulling me into an embrace that crushed ribs I didn't know were fragile. Up close. She looked a decade older, lines etched deep from the night's revelations. Dad's eyes, bloodshot, searched mine for the daughter he thought he knew. Gianna's. Your sister's in holding. Says you're not you. I pulled away. Izzy's poised my armor. Sit down. There's more. We huddled in the kitchen, the same Formica table where I'd done homework while Izzy prepped for prom. I laid it out, the swap. The sabotage. The years of erasure. Not the full gory mechanics, no need to indict myself further, but enough to paint the portrait of betrayal. Mom gasped at the fraud details, hand to mouth like a soap opera widow. Dad slammed his glass, amber sloshing. You did what to the car?
Jesus.
Girl, that's attempted murder. I finished. Voice steady. But she lived. And in her skin, I felt what it was like to be seen. Valued. Not half a woman, but whole. The room hung heavy, air thick with the scent of last night's turkey carcass still in the trash.
They didn't call the cops on me. Not then.
Mom wept for the lost years. Dad paced, muttering about lawyers and family therapy. But under it, a current of resentment bubbled toward Izzy. Yes, but toward me for wielding the truth like a weapon. You could have come to us, Dad said finally, voice cracking. Instead of this. I laughed, bitter. And say what, Mom? Dad. Stop loving her more? You'd have gaslit me into oblivion. Dawn crept in, painting the cabinets gold. And as they crashed on the couch, exhausted, I slipped upstairs to Izzy's old room. Pink walls faded to blush. Posters of boy bands curling at the edges. In her vanity mirror, my reflection mocked me, her beauty, my rage. The $84,000 check, framed now in my mind as a talisman, sat heavy in my purse. Secret no more. Word spread like Midwest wildfire. By noon, aunts and uncles were blowing up the landline. Cousins demanding on Facebook. Heard about Izzy. Prayers. A reporter from the Tribune sniffed around, but Dad stonewalled. I fielded calls from Izzy's lawyer, hers now, technically demanding release on bail, citing mental duress from the accident. I hung up, then wired the first restitution check, $20,000 to the Jersey mom. Note reading from one sister to another. Rebuild. It felt like absolution, or at least a down payment on it. But the antagonist in this farce wasn't just Izzy, it was the machine she'd built, the power she'd wielded like a scepter. That afternoon, holed up in the guest room, I dove into her emails, archived on a hidden drive I'd snagged from the PI. Memos to underlings, threats veiled as performance reviews, affairs with bosses that greased her promotions. One thread chilled me. Correspondence with a DR. Hail at a discreet upstate clinic. Payments for experimental neural mapping. Was that the swap's origin? Some black market brains can gone wrong. Syncing our twin signals too close? I bookmarked it. Pulse racing. If Izzy had dabbled in fringe science to enhance her edge, dopamine tweaks, memory boosts, then the crash had been the spark that crossed the wires. Evening brought the Real storm. Izzy's bail hearing fast-tracked, courtesy of her Rolodex. She called from the station. Voice mine but laced with her venom. You bitch. Enjoying my view from the top? It'll crumble. I know things about you.
John.
That little shoplifting spree in high school? The pills you popped after college? I gripped the phone. Knuckles white. Those were your secrets too.
Is.
We shared a womb. Remember? But I carried your sins. Now you carry mine.
Click.
The line went dead. But her words lingered. A hook in my gut. Controversial? Destroying her meant dredging my own filth, the petty thefts born of desperation. The antidepressants I'd flushed down the toilet to hide my weakness. Was revenge just mutual evisceration? Mom cooked spaghetti that night. Carbs as comfort.
But the sauce tasted like ash.
Over plates. Dad broached the elephant. What now?
Kid?
You can't just be her. I met his eyes. Izzy's hazel flecked with my steel. Why not? She stole my voice for years. Now I have hers. Mom sobbed into her napkin. This isn't God, Isabella. It's the devil. Maybe. But as I washed dishes, suds warm on unfamiliar skin, I felt the tension coil tighter, cops circling, victims demanding more, and Izzy plotting from her cell. The climax loomed, not at the table, but in the courts, where truths would twist like pretzels. Court dates loomed like thunderheads over Lakeshore Drive, the kind that dump hail on your windshield and leave dents you can't buff out. 2 weeks post-Thanksgiving, and Chicago's winter had settled in. Gray skies mirroring the sludge in my soul. Stuck in Izzy's body, permanently. It seemed, the anomaly a one-way ticket, I navigated her world with the grace of a fox in a henhouse. Mornings started with green juice and Peloton sessions that left me gasping. Afternoons in conference calls pretending to consult on ethical investments while dodging subpoenas. The $84,000? I'd funneled it into a trust for the Ponzi victims. Anonymous drops through a lawyer in Buffalo. Each wire transfer chipped at the guilt. But the mirror lied every time, her face smiling back, mine screaming inside. Izzy's arraignment was a circus. Media vans clogging the federal courthouse steps like rush hour on the Kennedy. I slipped in the back, trench coat collar up, heart hammering as if it were my neck on the block. There she was in my body, rail-thin from jail slop, orange jumpsuit swallowing her frame. Our eyes met across the gallery, her in blue, me in hazel. A mirror image warped by bars and betrayal. The judge, a no-nonsense type with a Bears mug on his bench. Read the charges: wire fraud, securities violations, a laundry list that could net 20 years. Izzy's lawyer, a slick Fox News regular, spun the tragic twin dynamic angle: crash trauma, identity bleed, me as the unhinged enabler. She took the stand briefly, voice cracking on cue. My sisters always resented me. She confessed to tampering with the car. Gasps rippled. I gripped the pew, nails, hers, digging crescents into palms. The prosecution called me next. MS. Voss, the DA prompted, a bulldog in a pantsuit. I stood, Izzy's heels clicking authority. Which one? A titter in the room, quickly quelled. Under oath, I laid it bare: the ghostwriting, the frame job, the offshore siphons. Exhibits flashed: emails, ledgers, the $84,000 deposit slip with my initials forged in her flourish. She made me the villain to play the saint, I said, voice steady, channeling every late-night true crime pod I'd binged in my old life. The jury, blue-collar types from the South Side, faces etched with their own hard knocks, leaned in, eyes narrowing at Izzy's fidgeting. But her cross-exam? Brutal. You admit to the sabotage. MS. Voss, her lawyer pressed, leaning in like a televangelist. Attempted murder. In fact, the courtroom held its breath. I met his gaze. I admit to desperation. To a sister who ate my dreams for breakfast and spat out the bones. Outside, post-testimony, reporters swarmed like pigeons on crusts. Isabella, did you swap souls? One yelled. Mike thrust like a bayonet. I shoved through, flashing Izzy's platinum Amex at a cabbie for escape. Back in the Tesla, seized pending investigation. So Uber it was, the adrenaline crashed, leaving me hollow. Controversial? Testifying against your own blood. Even tainted. Felt like betraying the Voss name etched on our shared DNA. Mom and Dad waited at a diner off Michigan Avenue. Formica booths sticky with syrup ghosts. You destroyed her, Mom whispered, eyes red-rimmed. Dad stared into his coffee. Us too. I slid the trust docs across. $84,000 dispersed. Receipts attached. Not destruction. Reparations. She stole from strangers. I stole back for them. The real mountebank was Dr. Hale, the clinic ghost from Izzy's emails. I tracked him to a nondescript brownstone in Evanston, under the L's rattle. He answered the door in tweed, spectacles perched like a owl's judgment. Isabella Voss?
Or
Not. His office smelled of formaldehyde and old books, walls lined with brain scans glowing under UV. Over weak tea? He confessed. Experimental telepathy trials. Funded by Izzy's dirty money. Twins are ideal, mirrored neurology. You were her control subject. Unwittingly. The crash? A synaptic overload, souls leaping the gap like sparks in a short circuit. Reversible. In theory. But ethics board shut us down. I pressed. Fix it. He shook his head. Too late. The mapping's permanent. Walking out. Wind whipping off the lake. I felt the weight, not fate, but science's Frankenstein, birthed by her ambition. Izzy's trial dragged into December. Snow blanketing the city like a shroud. Victim testimonies gutted the room. The Ohio teacher, voice trembling, describing Christmases skipped for her investment. The Jersey mom, clutching photos of lost beach vacations. Each one an indictment. But Izzy's defense twisted it. Envy's poison. Gianna in my body orchestrated this. Wiretaps played. My voice, hers, whispering threats. The jury wavered. Polls in the Sun-Times showed a hung split.
me?
I became a pariah in her circles. Old friends ghosted. Labeled me the swap witch. One night. Buzzed on her vintage Cabernet. I hooked up with her ex, a venture capitalist with a jawline like a Marvel hero. In his Tribeca loft. Bodies tangling. I chased oblivion. But mid-thrust. His whisper. You fuck like her. But colder, sent me bolting, heels in hand, into the pre-dawn chill. Family fractured further. Christmas Eve. Mom's call, don't come. Your father's. Processing. I spent it alone in the apartment. Tree untrimmed. Toasting with eggnog to the ghosts. The $84,000 echoes mocked me, restitution paid. But at what cost? My old life. Ashes, hers. A cage. Yet power thrummed in this form. Job offers trickling in, not as Izzy, but as the whistleblower twin. A TEDx slot. Even. On sibling rivalry's dark side. I prepped slides. Practicing her charisma. But inside. Tension coiled like a spring. Izzy's letters from lockup arrived, pages of rage scrawl. You think you're free? I buried your dirt deeper than you know. Enclosed. A photo. Us at 12. Arms linked at Six Flags. Smiles unscarred. New Year's brought the verdict. Guilty on all counts. 15 years at Dwight Correctional. Izzy's scream echoed through the feed I watched on my phone, alone in a Times Square bar amid confetti chaos. Cheers erupted around me for Auld Lang Syne, but mine tasted Pyrrhic. Walking home, fireworks bursting like accusations, I pondered the antagonist's fall. Her moxie, once a weapon, now rusted behind bars. But the twist fermented Dr. Hale's permanent ally? A follow-up email from him. New trial. Volunteers needed. Reversal possible. My finger hovered over reply. Stay in power. Or reclaim the familiar frailty. January thawed the lies. SEC grilled me in a sterile conference room. Fluorescent buzz like angry bees. Your tips saved millions, the agent said. But her eyes said accomplice. I lawyered up with Izzy's retainer, spilling just enough to skate, the swap as delusion, the sabotage a cry for help. Cleared, but scarred. Mom thawed too. Tentative lunches at Berghoff's. Sauerbraten and silences. Forgive her, she asked once. Napkin twisting. Never, I said. But understand? Always. Dad sent tools, literal. From his garage. Build something new. Kid. I did. A blog. Swapped secrets. Anonymized tales of sibling theft. It went viral. Podcast deals following. In Izzy's skin. I bloomed. Controversial voice in the ether. But the climax crested in March. Cherry blossoms mocking the rot. Izzy appealed. Pro bono from some white knight firm claiming neurological duress. Hearing set in Springfield. Downstate where the fields stretch endless. I drove. Tesla reclaimed. Radio silent. Courthouse loomed antebellum. All columns and ghosts. Her new angle. The swap proved her innocence, me puppeteering from inside. Framing to escape my debts. Expert witness. Dr.
Hale.
Bought off. Testifying to contagious psychosis. I took the stand again. Voice Izzy's but resolve mine. She built the cage. I just locked the door. Jury deliberated 2 days. Snow flurries dusting the lot. Verdict, appeal denied. Izzy's wail carried on the wind as I left.
Free.
Yet driving north. The reversal hit, not souls, but truth. Hale's car waited at a rest stop. Envelope on the dash, reversal serum. Experimental, vile glowing faint. 1 shot. Choose. I smashed it on the asphalt. Glass shards winking like stars. This body, this life, flawed, fierce, was mine now. Revenge complete. But the debate? Eternal. Hero or villain, sister or thief. In America's heartland, where dreams die quiet, I'd claimed the narrative.
And damn.
It sang. Spring unfurled in the city like a reluctant confession. Dogwoods blooming pink against the steel grid of Manhattan. 6 months post-verdict, and Izzy's absence echoed in the empty half of our shared history, a void-eyed filled with redecorated walls and a therapist who charged like a surgeon. Her body had become habit now, the way my hair fell in effortless waves. The stride that parted crowds on Fifth Avenue like Moses at the Red Sea. The $84,000 legacy? A foundation now. Voss voices, doling microgrants to underdog women. Writers ghosted. Sisters sidelined. Checks cleared weekly. Each one a middle finger to the past. But power's a double-edged blade. It cuts the wielder too. Late nights. Scrolling victim thank yous. I'd catch my reflection, hazel eyes haunted, and wonder, had the swap stolen more than Izzy's throne? My soul's soft edges. Blunted by her sharpness? Mom and Dad's reconciliation tour hit in May. A weekend in the Hamptons house Izzy'd leased under my name. They flew in, tentative as tourists, Mom clutching a scrapbook like a shield. For the new you, she said. Pages of us. Gianna's finger paints beside Izzy's valedictorian speech. We walked the beach. Atlantic crashing judgment. Dad's arm around Mom's waist. We failed you both, he admitted. Voice whipped by salt wind. Picked favorites like it was fantasy football. I nodded. Sand gritty, between toes that weren't prone to blisters. But I won the Super Bowl. Laughter broke the waves, real. Rusty. Dinner that night. Lobster rolls and truths. Mom confessed her own buried sin, favoring Izzy to mask her postpartum blues after me. The easy second-born. Dad admitted flipping houses on the sly. Debts that made him push Izzy's success like a proxy win. Forgiveness? Not quite. But understanding? A start. As they boarded the shuttle back, Mom hugged tight. Whoever you are now, you're our girl. Izzy's letters kept coming, postmarked from Dwight, ink smudged with desperation. I get it now. The cage was always there. She spun tales of prison enlightenment, book club with lifers, yoga in the yard begging visits. I went once. July heat wave turning the visitation room to a sweatbox. Plexiglass between us. Phones greasy. She looked.
Me. Gaunt.
But with a spark I'd never owned, resilience forged in fire. Switch back, she pleaded, my old blue eyes pleading. The serum, Hale said. I cut her off. Smashed it. This is me.
Ease. Deal.
Her laugh was bitter.
Familiar.
Half the woman.
Huh?
Turns out we're the same mess. We talked hours, childhood slights. The fraud's genesis in Dad's absences. Mom's wine-fueled comparisons.
No theirs.
But a truce. I'd fund her appeals. Pro bono shrinks. Not for her. For the twin bond that Swap had twisted but not broken. Controversy stalked like a tabloid shadow. A Vanity Fair profile dropped in August. The Swap sisters, soul theft or sibling slaughter? Painting me as anti-hero. Izzy the fallen angel. Protests outside the Foundation's pop-up office. Free Izzy. Gianna's the real crook. Feminists rallied for me. Pickets with sisters over systems. I dodged interviews. But the TEDx gig forced my hand. Stage lights hot in Vancouver. Wait.
No.
Virtual from a green screen loft. I spoke to a sea of pixels. Betrayal isn't born. It's bred. In American dreams where one wins, another loses. Q&A turned brutal. Was the sabotage murder? Does power corrupt the powerless? I owned it. I chose wrong. But righted it wrong. Views spiked. Book deal offers flooded. Swapped. A memoir of stolen skins. Ghostwriter?
Me.
No more shadows. The antagonist's ghost lingered in Hale's shadow. Fall equinox. I confronted him at a neurology confab in Boston, sneaking backstage amid tweed jackets and PowerPoints. Why her? Why us? He sipped Chablis. Unrepentant. Ambitious subjects yield data. Isabella paid premium for edge, neural tweaks to outthink rivals. The swap, collateral, a beautiful anomaly. I pressed a recorder in his ribs. Admit it. You enabled the fraud. His laugh was dry as chalk. Power's the real crime. Emis.
Voss.
Yours now. I leaked the tape anonymously, watching his license crumble in ethics probes. Poetic? Hell yes. But as leaves turned in Central Park, joggers crunching copper paths, I felt the yumness lift. Revenge's arc bent toward dawn. Climax crested unexpectedly. Halloween Eve. When Izzy escaped. News broke at midnight. Transport van hijack. Her and my old body vanishing into Indiana cornfields. Manhunt alerts pinged my phone. Suspect. Gianna Voss. Alias Isabella. Irony's knife twisted deep. I barricaded the apartment. Lights low. Heart jackhammering. Calls flooded. Feds demanding whereabouts. Mom hysterical. She's coming for you. Dawn brought silence. Then a knock, soft.
Familiar.
Door cracked. Izzy. Disheveled. Clutching a duffel. Truce. No gun. Just eyes, mine pleading. She'd bolted for confrontation. Not carnage.
Vi tar sig till non.
Coffee brewing like old times. Her plan, Flee to Canada. New life in my skin. You keep the empire. I'll keep the escape. Controversial? Complicity in harbor. But blood whispered, let her. I drove her to the border at dusk. Adirondacks blurring purple. Silent miles. Then her whisper, the swap. It showed me your strength. Borrowed it. At the crossing, fake IDs flashed, PI favors. She hugged awkward. My old frame bony in my arms. Half-sisters forever. Vanished into Quebec fog.
Fes chased ghosts. Ispun ransom tales.
Foundation funds buying silence. Twist? Hale's final email. Post-suicide, reversal was illusion. You were always whole. No science, just placebo power. The truth inverted. We'd swapped nothing but perspectives. The crash a catalyst for cracking shells. Ending? Debatable as a Supreme Court split. I thrive in her skin keynotes. Lovers who see me.
Mauvaise brunch sans jugement.
But nights, I dream of blue eyes. Wondering if Izzy stares Hazel into Canadian mirrors. Both of us half whole. Stitched from the other's theft. Happy? For the victims. Yes, funds flowing. Lives mended. Tragic? For the Vosses. Fractured but free. In America's grind, where revenge is just evolution's ugly stepchild, I sit at tables uninvited no more. And if the debate rages, who won? Who lost? Let it. I've got the voice now. And damn, it roars.